Hello, and welcome to the 11th episode of TB76's TSW Thoughts, where I look at Train Sim World DLCs and review them from my own brutally honest perspective and go over what I like, dislike, and what can be improved. I'm an independent reviewer, so I'm not affiliated or endorsed by Dovetail Games. Today, we are looking at the Schnellfahrtstrecke Köln Aachen, which was the core German route of the TSW2 period, which runs between Cologne and Aachen in the German state of North Rhine-Westphalia. As of February 2026, it, along with the GWE and East Coastway, has received a remaster, but unlike the excellent GWE and the decent East Coastway remaster, this, however, leaves a lot to be desired, and is really just a facelift for a route which still hasn't had some of its fundamental problems fixed. So without further ado, we shall get into the overview. The Schnellfahrtstrecke Köln-Aachen runs for 70 kilometers or 43 miles between the city of Cologne or Köln, the largest city in the German state of North Rhine-Westphalia, and Aachen, a historic city near the Dutch and Belgian borders, and was in the medieval period known for its associations and the court of Charlemagne, Emperor of the Carolingian Empire. The stretch is notable for its sections with the LZB Linie-Zugbeeinflussung between just beyond Köln Hauptbahnhof and just west of Düren, which allows speeds of up to 250 km an hour. After that, it reverts back to the normal PZB Punktförmige Zugbeeinflussung, which only allows speeds of up to 160 km an hour. This route was originally released in 2020 as part of the TSW2 core package, being the German core route. Then, in 2025, it received a timetable update which added a new and busier timetable, but however still had the original lighting, which would not be addressed until the debatable Remaster of February 2026, which, while it was advertised as a remaster as such in a similar vein to the excellent GWE Remaster and decent East Coastway Remaster, was more of a lighting upgrade and facelift for a route, with many features like station and onboard announcements, random train faults and others not being included, much to many a player's disappointment, including myself. The stations on the line are of course the main two stations, Köln Hauptbahnhof and Aachen Hauptbahnhof, while other stations on the line between the two include Harum, Düren, Eschweiler, Stolberg Hauptbahnhof, and other various stations. The ICE services, however, only serve Köln and Aachen and run non-stop between the two. I will go more into this when I talk about the service variation. Of note, two curious features of these stations. One of these at Düren is, at least, the remains of the old turntable, which of course has been long out of use, and is set close to the station building. The other being the old station building on the fast line side of the tracks at Fresh and Königsdorf, which the platforms are on the slow S-Bahn tracks. Whether the station building is still in use as a station building, I don't know, but likely not. The rolling stock included by default is the BR406 ICE3M, the first ICE in-game, and the BR442 Talent 2. The ICE3M was a multi-voltage unit used for cross-border journeys into Belgium, France and the Netherlands, but as of April 2025 have been withdrawn and replaced with newer ICEs, owing to increasing unreliability, aging technology and incompatibility with ETCS. The Talent 2, although I have it installed with a region-specific reskin mod, was not the first Talent 2 in-game, the first being the S-Bahn Mitteldeutschland BR1442 on the quite frankly boring and outdated rapid transit route. And for various reasons, I am rather disappointed and sour about the Leipzig to Dresden route, which, if I get round to reviewing, I will go over why. The BR442 is a 4-car variant of the Talent 2, but also comes in 3 or 5-car variants, with the 3-car variant coming with Nahverkehr Dresden and the disappointing aforementioned Leipzig to Dresden, but we however don't have the 5-car variant in game. In the new Journeys expansion pack, we get the BR423 in the S-Bahn Köln livery, but however, this is more of a reskin of the S-Bahn München BR423 from the absolutely terrible München to Augsburg route that is in desperate need of a complete remaster, or maybe needs to be rebuilt from the top up. I have uninstalled it from my game. Details include the S-Bahn Köln branding and the coat of arms of the state of North Rhine-Westphalia on the cab doors. The interior of the S-Bahn Köln BR423 is actually the refurbished BR423 of the Munich sets, which is not accurate to what they would actually look like. The BR423 from the Frankfurt S-Bahn actually has the correct interior, but that was not as the remaster ported over to the BR423 Köln variant. I don't know if it was doable or feasible, but they could have at least tried to see whether it was doable. Skyhook Games made the BR187, a freight version of the Bombardier Trax, the newer version of the BR185, which has appeared way too much now for me to care. It's ad nauseum at this point, but the BR187, to put it politely, is a rough piece of work. The light clusters are wrong for a start, the sounds are not great, and the only plus point is the ability to walk through the engine room, as demonstrated here. DTG is working on the BR147, the passenger version, but for Stuttgart Heilbronn, which I can only hope will turn out better than this one. In June 2025, a new timetable was released, with the original 552 services increased to over 4,000, which includes AI layers to destination off-map, of which 600 are playable. The new timetable uses layers from newer TSW German routes like Bremen-Oldenburg, Linker Rheinstrecke, Kassel-Würzburg, Maintalbahn and others. However, this new timetable was released before the remaster, lighting update. So it had the older TSW2 era lighting, so for some of the new trains like the BR193 and the BR103, as demonstrated here on Rohrsig Nord, the exterior lighting was naff or non-existent, as you can see here. With the new TOD4 lighting, this problem is well solved, as could be seen here. I brought up this problem as the BR193 Vectron and the BR103 have layers in the new timetable. Now, I will go over the remaster while I show some clips that I filmed before the remaster with the old lighting. The remaster, as well as the new TOD4 lighting, includes new OHLE rendering, new grass and vegetation textures, new night lighting, updated lighting, displays, FIS/PIS displays on the BR442 and 423, and so on and so forth. However, much to my and a lot of players' disappointment, there are no station or onboard announcements, suspension updates or random train faults. These factors significantly let this remaster down compared to the GWE Remaster, which sets a high standard, and the decent East Coastway Remaster. Although, both the GWE and Köln-Aachen's updated timetable comes free, while the East Coastway's new timetable only comes with the BR171 and 377/3 add-on by Rivet Games. Service variation, not counting the AI layers, includes ICE trains that are typically the ICE 3 run between Frankfurt am Main Hauptbahnhof and Bruxelles Midi, which is drivable between Köln and Aachen Hauptbahnhof non-stop, and reaches speeds of up to 250 km an hour on the high-speed section. But 4 services on the timetable are run by the ICE 1 from Kassel Würzburg, but for some reason is only limited to 200 km an hour. A handful of IC services run by the original BR101 and a return Flixtrain service is drivable both ways with the Flixtrain BR193. The regional express services are as follows. The RE9 Rhein-Sieg Express that is typically run between Aachen and Siegen but is drivable between Aachen and Köln, with stops at Ehrenfeld, Horem, Düren, Langewehe, Eschweiler, Stolberg and Aachen-Rote Erde. These are typically run with the BR442, the RE1 between Aachen and Ham, Westphalia, which is typically run with the Dostos and a BR146. The RE8 between Koblenz and Mönchengladbach, which is only drivable between Köln Hauptbahnhof and Ehrenfeld, which uses the older BR425 from Hauptstrecke Rhein-Ruhr. S-Bahn services are the lines S12 between Hernef and Horem, or S19 between Au an der Sieg and Düren, which is the westernmost stop of the S-Bahn Köln network. Some S12 services, however, only go as far as Ehrenfeld. These services typically stop at the smaller S-Bahn stations that are not typically served by the regional express trains, although regional services do call at Ehrenfeld, Horem and Düren as well. Additionally, an evening S19 service goes as far as Aachen Hauptbahnhof. Regionalbahn services on the diesel-only lines are typically run by the Class 642 from the Maintalbahn, although, in real life, the Class 643 Talent 1 and the BR622 Lint 54 run these services, and these are run by the Euroregiobahn, Ruhrtalbahn and DB NVR, which this reskin mod is representing. The drivable service is the RB20 between Stolberg/Stolberg Rathaus and Aachen Hauptbahnhof, and is notable for being the only service that stops at Eilendorf. The other RB services are AI only, going off map. And of course there are various freight services that are drivable along the route and going to destinations off map. So that was an overview of the route. Now we shall go over what I like, dislike and what can be improved. What I like. The model of the famous Kölner Dom, or Cologne Cathedral, which is one of the largest and tallest Gothic cathedrals in the world, and took over 600 years to build, and is a major landmark in the city. Next year, I actually plan to go on holiday to Germany and stay in Cologne and visit the cathedral for myself. This curious lighthouse on the building not far from Ehrenfeld station, which, according to my research, is the Helios Leuchtturm, built on the former factory of Helios AG, an electrical engineering company, and they use their lighthouse for testing and research purposes. It is now preserved as a historic monument. The famous Hohenzollern Bridge across the Rhine, even though it is outside the drivable area, it is still visible from Köln Hauptbahnhof, named after the House of Hohenzollern, the House of the Kings of Prussia and later the Kaisers of Germany until 1918. The two horses are meant to be a representation of the two statues of Kaiser Wilhelm II riding a horse, although they could have modelled it better and actually have included the Kaiser himself on horseback. The curious layout at Horem Station, which has the mainline platforms, and then these two platforms on a sort of triangle layout towards the branch towards Bedburg on the Erft Railway towards Neuss. The busy timetable and service variation, which I have gone over in the timetable and service variation section, adds a lot of variety to the route, especially the new diesel RB services. The high speed section, which gives you the chance to run above 160 km an hour on the LCB lines, although it is relatively short all things considered. It does shave a lot of time off the journey between Köln and Aachen for the fastest trains, but do be mindful that you will sometimes be behind slower regional trains. The timetable gives you the chance to run the BR103 and BR193 Vectron on some services, especially the former, at their top speed of 200 km an hour on the LZB section. What I dislike: numerous scenery issues such as this crossing near Eschweiler, which the road sort of cuts like this, and the embankment that looks rough near Frechten Königsdorf, with no vegetation. Looking at Google Maps and Google Earth, there is foliage and vegetation on the embankment, which is a massive disappointment and oversight. Numerous NPC issues, not boarding the train at many stations, which is especially apparent on the regional express services, which can often be empty. Although on the S-Bahn services, NPCs do board the train, but not at every station. This issue with the NPCs, if not with the route itself, must be fixed to bring real life to the route. Again, with the aforementioned problem with the NPCs, sometimes stations can be rather lifeless and dull, whereas in real life they are much busier. This is not isolated to Köln-Aachen, but other TSW routes as well, but it is rather apparent on this route, and also Northern Transpennine, but that is another day, another review, and another route that needs a good remaster. Lack of the new features in the, which I have of course mentioned in the overview, which makes this remaster fall significantly short of the aforementioned GWE and East Coastway remasters. The BR423 being a missed opportunity for being an actual S-Bahn Köln remodelling, if it had not simply been a reskin of the Munich S-Bahn 423. It would have been more accurate to the actual Köln units if they were not used for just a cheap cash grab. Without any layers, it can be rather lifeless and boring, especially as I found during the TSW2 era with just the 406 and 422. What can be improved? The addition of the Stahlberg branch as far as Stahlberg Rathaus, which even if the services would have to be split into two parts, would give the opportunity to drive the full RB20 Stahlberg to Aachen services. For a small extension, it would be worth it. In conjunction with the Stahlberg branch, the addition of the BR643 Talent 1 GMU, which would make the diesel run services more accurate. It should be a fairly easy job, as the ÖBB 4024 is already in game, and would need some modifications to make it into the 3-car DMU it actually is, although it will be most likely in DB Verkehrsrot livery. Likewise with the 642 repaints, someone will do it in Die Euroregiobahn livery. The inclusion of functioning displays in the 423, akin to newer trains like the Frankfurt S-Bahn 423, would just add that little bit more to the 423, if not a full interior rebuilding. The BR403 ICE3 from Kassel Würzburg should also have AI layers at Köln, because not all the IC3s are the 406, as only a limited amount were built, and the 403s are more numerous, so it would make more realistic sense for the 403 from Castle Würzburg to have AI only layers in the timetable. And lastly, remaster the bloody thing properly, not this half job here. In conclusion, I have to say that the Köln-Aachen remaster falls significantly short of many other remasters, especially the GWE Remaster, and to a slightly lesser extent the East Coastway Remaster, and is as much of a disappointment as Leipzig to Dresden, to put it bluntly. The route, however, still has its good points, and is a fairly decent route overall, with a good timetable, with the layers installed, and good service variation. For these reasons, I would recommend waiting for a sale if you haven't got it already. The next review will be the Liberec Stara Paca route, and then should be the Pfälzische Ludwigsbahn with Lexi. As always, updates via community post. Until then, this is TB76 signing off. Goodbye.